Look, I don't know what kind of stuff you all think is funny, but I can tell you what I think is funny. It's Impractical Jokers. Have you ever watched this show? There's 4 friends. They've been friends forever. Have we talked about this? Maybe we've talked about this. And what they do is they take turns sending one out at a time with like a little earpiece in or something. And they make them do insane stuff in front of people, make an idiot of themselves. And they prank each other really hard, and there's some kind of competition and everything. And that's not really the point of where I'm going. The point of where I'm going is that one of my favorite things they do to each other is they put their buddy in a position that is like the nightmares you had when you were a kid. For example, they'll put him on stage and be like, all right, you're going to go out and you're going to play this role. And then they go out to play the role and the book is blank and they don't know what they're supposed to say, or the script is blank. Or they'll tell them they have to go give a presentation to a room full of people who are expecting something brilliant. And then they get out there and they've given them a completely different message. You're just something totally incoherent that they have to try to pass off. And it delights me. It is the kind of discomfort that is my favorite kind of, well, vicarious discomfort. I don't ever want to live that out for myself. And the joke is really simple. We can all imagine how horrifying and what a nightmare it would be to be in that situation where we're supposed to have a message and everyone is gathered around to hear it, but all we have is incoherent drivel or no idea what the message even is at all, or no idea who the audience is at all. And our instinct to understanding that if you get people's attention or ask for their attention and then you got nothing, that's shameful and embarrassing, that instinct is what makes the joke work. And likewise, that instinct is what makes Matthew 10 so obviously a pivotal, very important part of the evolution of Jesus' disciples, because they're getting sent out to go and talk about religious things to people in their neighborhood, people they maybe grew up with, people they maybe do some business with. So they're going to go and demand an audience or try to command an audience, get people's attention. But if they don't have any clarity on what they're doing, this is going to be a hysterical joke. And if they do, it might be awesome. Well, obviously, we wouldn't still know about it if they didn't get some kind of clarity on what they're doing. So here we are at the beginning of Matthew 10. We've already had one of the great big 5 speeches of Jesus that Matthew builds his whole book around. That one is called the Sermon on the Mount. We spent a ton of time on it. I think we had fun together doing that. That one is really neatly structured, and it's a kingdom manifesto where Jesus lays out a contrast between the world kingdom and all the values that you're used to and how stuff usually goes in the world for us versus this kingdom of God, this kingdom of heaven thing. And it's weird and it's different and disorienting, but the more you sit and listen to Jesus talk, the more you're like, I really like that. And I would really like to be a part of a kingdom like that with those sorts of values. Then for the next 2 chapters, chapters 8 and 9, Jesus demonstrates his authority to back up his claims about this amazing kingdom that he's inviting everybody to. But then as we get to chapter 10, his still really squishy, wishy-washy disciples get commissioned to go out and try this out themselves, put on stage, Impractical Jokers style. Now the question is, what are they supposed to go and say? Will it be a big embarrassment or will it be awesome? So here's where we pick it up. Let's go Matthew 10, verse 5. These 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions. Don't go among the Gentiles nor enter any town of the Samaritans. We already covered that. Go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. As you go, preach this message. Now, if you're cheated ahead already and you already looked at this verse, that's cool. That's fine. You're allowed to do that. It's a Bible. It's kind of public domain at this point and everything. But if you haven't, what would you just guess from your experience with church or your negative experiences watching other people go to church, or what you've encountered being really, really into this whole thing and being an advocate for Christian stuff, or what you've encountered as a skeptic from a great distance? Just what would you guess? Like if Jesus was like, hey, here's the most important thing, go say this stuff, what would you guess it would be? Like God is love, you have to believe in your dreams, never give up on hope, you got to be nicer to each other, quit it with all the booze and weird sex stuff. And maybe you're laughing at me for saying that, but I'm guessing for a lot of you, that's your impression of what the chief, most important message of Christianity is based on your experiences. No, he doesn't say actually any of that stuff. Here's the message he gives them, and it's unbelievably simple. As you go, preach this message. The kingdom of heaven is near. That's it. That was the whole thing. No weird sex stuff or booze or don't swear or anything like that, or make sure to vote for this party. Nope. Just, hey, the kingdom of heaven is near. What does that mean? How could that be enough for the disciples not to go out on stage thinking they got a script, and then they get out there and realize that their friend Jesus played a hilarious prank on him and he's cracking up just off stage like, ha ha, you got nothing, good luck. How is that enough not to have been a prank? Let's break it down. Okay, the kingdom thing. If this is the first we've heard of it, this would be a mean prank for Jesus to play on them. But this isn't the first we've heard of it. In fact, this idea of the kingdom is one that grows right out of the notion of God's authority in the Old Testament. It grows right out of the notion of the deal he made with Abraham. He's like, I'm going to make you this great people. It flows right out of the deal that he made with Moses, where he's like, hey, you're going to be my people, and I'm going to be your God. That's a king-subject relationship that goes on right there. Eventually, the people of Israel, you remember, they're like, no, we kind of like to have more like a regular king, like a normal one who looks more like us and hangs out and stuff, and maybe has a few more foibles. And you remember God through the prophet, is it Samuel? I think it was Samuel, right? Yeah, it had to have been Samuel. It was like, okie dokie, you can do that if you want to, but kings, they like to tax and send people to war and stuff, and that could get weird. And they're like, nah, we totally want a king like that. And he's like, okay, fine, cool. And so they reject the normal God as king thing that God had set up, and instead they want a new deal where they get human kings, and the human kings are good for like an hour, and then things turn really ugly. And then David comes along, and he's got this great reputation, but he's not that great a king either. He's got huge problems. Yet in the middle of all of that, we get our third big deal of the Old Testament. You got the one with Abram, you got the one with Moses, that both point toward this kingdom kind of deal shaping up. But it's explicit when we get to the deal that gets struck with David. You remember this, right? David's like, all right, I'm going to build you a great temple. This has been a little up and down. I haven't been the best at this thing, but I really want to honor God and thank you for who you are and all the great stuff that you've done in our people. And so I'm going to make you this great temple. And God's like, nope. Maybe I'll have your kid do that or something, but what we're going to do in the meantime is I'm going to make a deal for you, David. And like the deal I made with Abram, it's going to be unconditional. You can be as big an idiot as you want, and this deal's still going to happen because you're not really the point of this deal. And then the deal that God very overtly makes with David is that he's going to establish an eternal kingdom through David, and the kingdom's never going away. And there's going to be this great king that eventually sits on the throne of this line of David. This is why we did all the stuff about the genealogy in Matthew chapter 1. Remember, it took like 20 episodes to get through all of that. But there's a reason, because it's this prologue, this hint, this invocation of this very old idea in the minds of the original audience of this kingdom that is bigger than world kingdoms, that is bigger than history, that is bigger than everything, that straightens out all the problems. But who can fathom that? It's impossible to picture. So anyways, God makes a deal with David. David really takes advantage of the whole it's unconditional thing, does a whole bunch of stupid stuff. His kids do a bunch of stupid stuff. Ultimately, that stupid stuff leads to the northern and southern kingdoms of Israel and Judah being conquered. Everything seems broken and ruined, and that's when we get into the major prophets that you and I keep looking at in the Old Testament. And we find stuff like this, and I'm sorry, I'm bumping microphones. I'm making a mess. In Isaiah chapter 35, a passage we've looked at a lot. There's all this negative stuff before this, but there's still this lingering idea of a kingdom. And here's the description of it. It sounds like the end of the Lion King when everything turns green and perfect. It says, the desert and the parched land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom like the crocus. I have no idea what that is. It will burst into bloom. It will rejoice greatly and shout for joy. The glory of Lebanon will be given to it. The splendor of Carmel and Sharon, those are mountains. They will see the glory of the Lord, the splendor of our God. Strengthen the feeble hands. Steady the knees that give way. Say to those with fearful hearts, be strong. Don't fear. Your God will come. He'll come with vengeance, with divine retribution. He'll come and save you. Then will the eyes of the blind be opened and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then will the lame leap like a deer and the mute tongue shout for joy. Water will gush forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. The burning sand will become a pool and the thirsty ground bubbling springs and the haunts where jackals once lay. That's a good line. Grass and reeds and papyrus will grow. I mean, think about it. Jesus just kicked his buddies out on stage and was like, hey, say this in front of everybody. The kingdom of heaven is near. And they're probably like, well, how's that going to get anything done? But think about what Jesus just did in the previous passage. There's all that stuff about fixing blind eyes and making it so that somebody who's mute can now speak. And the five senses being put back intact. But what do we just see over there in Isaiah chapter 35? Eyes of the blind opened, ears of the deaf unstopped. The lame will leap like a deer. The mute tongue shout for joy. Jesus just got done doing all this stuff that are in one of the most famous descriptions of this kingdom in the Old Testament that everybody would have known about. So he's not really sending them out without a script. He's sending them out with something to point to, like, the kingdom of heaven is near. Yeah, pal, people have been saying that for a long time. Well, actually, this one's different. You guys remember Kyle? Yeah, Kyle, the guy who can't talk? Right. Kyle can totally talk now. It's weird. I don't know. No, seriously, it's different this time. Do you guys remember Doug and Carl? I mean, the blind guys? Yeah, the blind guys from high school. You remember them? They can totally see now. So all this Jesus thing, it's weird. I'm not good at theology. I've been a fisherman for a long time, but it looks like these are all the things that we've all agreed upon and we were all taught growing up that mean that the kingdom of heaven is near. And so I guess I'm supposed to come out here and be like, hey, the kingdom of heaven is near. I think this is what you're looking at right now, and you guys should take a really close look at what's going on, because it might just be that nebulous idea of the kingdom that we've vaguely put hope in is now gelling. It's taking shape. It's firming up. You can kind of picture what it looks like. And if you want to, you can even picture like exactly what the king looks like. He looks like that. That's him right over there. You can go and talk to him if you want to. The whole thing is about the advent of this kingdom under the authority of this great king. And there is so much more to unpack, even from this one little phrase that Jesus is giving them. We kind of looked at the Old Testament half of that. We'll look at the New Testament half of what this message means tomorrow. I know there are probably some of you who are like, oh, this is center cut, rich, thick, creamy, milky Christianity. And I kind of know this one, like kingdom, God, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I know because of experience that some of those things that seem the most biblically obvious can become the things that just wash over you like lukewarm water. And you just kind of roll with it and it doesn't stick quite as much because you feel like you got that knocked out at Bible camp in 5th grade. I would really encourage you to dial in on this one with me, because if we don't have crystal clarity on what Jesus' message is sending people out, and the rest of the story doesn't make a lot of sense. So even for those of you who totally get it, I think it's really important that we check back in on this and that we take the time to understand, and then we'll accelerate as we work our way through Matthew 10 a little bit further. Whether you're a cagey old veteran of religious Bible Christian stuff or whether you're brand new to this, I love that we get to hang out either way. Thanks for doing this with me. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.